Welcome back to the next chapter, our special three-part series on navigating one of life's biggest transitions with lifestyle strategist, retirement living expert, and the Dean of Downsizing, Andrew Morgan. And you know, folks, as America grows older, millions of adults are reaching a point where the homes and the possessions we work so hard to build are no longer serving the lives that we want to live. Yet many of us find the idea of downsizing distasteful. We delay it, we avoid it, and we frame it as a loss. Andrew, welcome back. And this, as you know, isn't about giving things up. It's about making room for what's next. So help us understand how we need and why we need to begin to think about downsizing.
Well, Mark, it's exactly what you said. It's truly about preparing yourself for that next chapter. And here's the thing that many, myself included, I'm no different than anybody else, but here's something that typically makes it difficult. And that is that we look at the things that are bringing us joy or things that at one time brought us joy, and we associate or we think that that thing is joyful. So there's an analogy that's been floating around for years in the marketing world, and it talks about, or it uses two islands, right? There's a pain island and there's a pleasure island. And the thought is that, if you're on Pain Island, you want to get to Pleasure Island, and Pleasure Island is where you can find joy and bliss and happiness and all those things. And typically the idea is that the things that you buy, or if you buy this thing or that car or that house or that particular watch or whatever it is, that those things are going to get you to Pleasure Island. What we fail to realize is that Pleasure Island is a state of mind, and it's an emotional state that can sometimes be reached by things. But everything has with it an expiration date, because things get older and they wear and they wear out and all those things. So the key is to understand what really matters most to us, and to also understand that the things that we have in our life may at one time took us to Pleasure Island, but Pleasure Island is not the boat. It's not the thing. And so when you understand that, you can detach from things and you can really focus on what puts you in that state and what that state is really about. I've found, in working with older adults, that's an analogy that just kind of helps to reframe things. Maybe you're in a 4-bedroom house and you love the yard, and it's certain things that you love about it. Maybe you enjoy gardening. Well, gardening is actually getting you to your Pleasure Island. It's not the house. So you find ways to really explore and to express that part of you that's being expressed when you are gardening. And it's not the thing. It's actually understanding how to get into that state. So I know that's a little, I don't know, is that too vague of an answer, Mark? Or is that making sense?
No, it's a great umbrella to wrap over what I'm going to ask next. I mean, what are the specific unexpected benefits that people don't anticipate before they downsize? I mean, what does a better day actually look like after someone right sizes? Walk us through it, if you will.
Yeah, a better day is you doing something that causes you to go to bed at night with a smile on your face and that sense of fulfillment, like, wow. It's a day where you're doing things that maybe you've not done before, where you are continuing to grow, you are continuing to be the person that you've always been, but then even at another level. It's hard to describe because it's different for every person. But if one day leads to another, that 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 I'll stop. Then what's probably happening is that you're really stuck and you're not getting everything that life has to offer. Remember what I said in the first episode is that, the past is a memory and it's living in our head, and the future is something that we imagine that also lives in our head. So when you're getting the most from the day, and you and only you know what that looks like. Maybe it is finding a way to be a bright spot in someone else's life. Maybe it is creating something. Maybe it is building something. Maybe it is finishing something. Whatever that thing is, you need to make sure that your life supports you in those endeavors, so that things are not taking those precious resources we talked about earlier, time, energy, and attention. You know what truly brings you joy. And if you can't connect to that, or if you haven't connected to that in a while, now is a great time to just kind of sit back and ask yourself those tough questions, which is, what does it take for me to just really feel super good about my days, because your days matter. Your days and your time is, of course, it is your life.
If a better day, Andrew, is difficult to describe, can it be measured? Can you share the impact on stress or mobility or social connection after someone simplifies their environment? What have you seen?
If you're able to spend time with peers, then what studies have shown is that your socialization is a key part of our wellness and our well-being, and it shows up in more than our emotional state. It actually shows up physically as well. But being free to do that is the challenge. That's the opportunity that we have when it comes to right sizing and downsizing it, so that we can really live more and live more with less, because a lot of the stuff that we carry with us, it's not giving us that return. It's just something that we have an internal commitment to maintain, to store, to house, to clean. That's taking away from things that can really give life more meaning at this stage.
You've mentioned several times that one of the positive impacts of moving into a community like Westminster is exposure to new people, to new ideas, new opportunities, new adventures. But how does downsizing typically affect existing relationships with spouses, with family, and even with friends?
That's a good question. With spouses, with family, and with friends, being free to be present is the biggest thing. Your house takes a lot from you. It really does. I can tell you grass, and this is, if you've ever heard me speak, if you ever heard me present at one of our events, I have a thing about grass. Only in that there's not really much you can do with it. You can't eat it. You can't gift it. You can't, you can't wear it. It's there. It lays flat, and it does one of two things. It's either a source of shame or it's a source of pride. But it's not doing anything for you, and yet it requires so much. It takes so much from you. So think about it like this: everything that you own carries with it an internal commitment, meaning that if it's yours, you are the keeper of it, right? That's a responsibility. So magnify that by years of stuff that you are responsible for. It's just that when those commitments begin to pile up, they weigh you down, and they really prevent you from being the person that you could be and having the time to be present to do the things that really matter to you most.
I'm guessing there is an identity shift when people get rid of all this stuff, and I know it has to be in general a positive one, or we wouldn't be here talking about this. Do people start to see themselves differently after making this move that you described?
Very often they start to see themselves again. Your things, the house, the all of those other things are just a kind of a shadow of who you have always been. It represents, or it can represent, who you were, but you're so much more than the stuff that you have. You're so much more than the house. Be who you are fully, show up as that person that you are, and your stuff should not get in the way of that. And the right sizing and downsizing helps with that tremendously.
Let's take a quick trip to Westminster Communities right now, because we actually spoke about the very things that Andrew's talking about with a few of the residents there.
We moved from a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, and it had a living room and dining room, which we didn't use that often. So mostly we were in the kitchen den area. So it's sort of like we have the same amount of space that we used at the house. So we do use all of it. And our grass gets mowed every week, and if we have a problem, we don't even change our own light bulbs. You put in a request and somebody comes and changes your light bulbs. So it is so much easier living in a space like this than living in your own home. My husband said, and this is when we were on a tour of Westminster, and he said, "Beverly, the reason I want us to move here is because I don't want to have to worry about you when something happens to me." Well, I burst into tears, and then I was on board. He was just thinking of me. And then since we've been there, I've had a health issue, and I was in the hospital within half an hour. You never know what's going to happen, and if you're already in place, then you're prepared. I know more of my neighbors here than I've ever known any other place I've lived, and I always tell Dennis, my husband, that this is my favorite place I've ever lived. Don't wait. Do it while it's your decision, not when it's forced upon you.
And when you make that decision, do you regret it?
No, I haven't regretted it at all. It's just been the best decision we could have made.
Always great to hear from the residents, the older adults themselves who have actually benefited from making this life transition. So give us a specific example or two, if you will. What have you seen from older adults that you've worked with? Do they regret downsizing? Do they regret waiting too long? What's the biggest regret?
I would say they don't regret downsizing. The hesitancy to do it is not one that on the other side of that decision, they lament, that they feel as though, wait, maybe I gave away too much. I've yet to see that. Truly, what I see is people thrive again because they have the time, energy, and attention to focus on something that matters. The only regret is that, again, that they didn't do it sooner. But on the other side of this, no one's really prepared us for this. If you think about the way that we reach a stage in life where it's time to right size and downsize, all of our gold stars came from the acquisition of things, not getting rid of things. It's like you think about the very first, I think of the when I was younger with a young family, I grew up in Maryland. And, when I was younger, we would go to Ocean City, which was about 2 hours. I grew up in Annapolis, so it's about 2 hours away from Annapolis, 2.5 hours away from Annapolis. And that was vacation. And then as we worked harder and we could take better vacations, we would go to Virginia Beach. And then we would go to Myrtle Beach. And then we would make our way to Florida. And then we would start traveling, in the Caribbean. And so life is this process of continually getting more and doing better and better and doing more and associating that with what success is. And it's hard. It's almost counterintuitive to think that you can get more by having less. But as we get older, it becomes necessary for us to put down things that are tying up our hands and preventing us from really getting to the things that matter most. Success is not something that I define as the acquisition of stuff. Success is simply your ability to produce a desired result. Whatever that result is, if you're able to produce it, then you're successful in doing it. There's a point in time where what we want to accomplish has more to do with meaning than it does with things. And that's what downsizing, that's what right-sizing frees you up for.
Love every bit of it. Andrew, I'm looking forward to episode 3. What are we going to do?
Well, we've been talking about kind of why you want to do this and the benefits of doing it. And in the next episode, let's talk about how to do it. How do we make this process easier for you?
Well, you've sold me. I think it's great for all of us to think about the next chapter. The time is now, folks. And if you'd like to learn more about Andrew, learn more about the next chapter, learn more about Westminster Communities, just go to westminstercommunitiesfl.org/downsizing, and you can learn everything they've got there. Thanks so much, Andrew.
My pleasure, Mark. Thank you.